When I went to seminary, I was very excited because I thought in seminary there's so much I can learn about pastoral ministry and about the Bible. And I did. I learned a lot. I took classes in pastoral counseling and systematic theology and moral theology and biblical interpretation and all that. And I was well prepared for work in a local parish. But there's some things that you can't learn except through experience. Let me give you an example. One of the first churches I served in was First Methodist Church in Kirbyville. Now, the church in Kirbyville actually is on the land right next door to the local funeral home. And one week, the funeral home director called me up and he said, we have someone who doesn't have a church home, and they'd like for you to do the funeral. I said, well, certainly I'd be happy to do that. And so we set a time and day for the funeral, and I put it on my calendar. Well, the day of the funeral came, and I was in the back of the church in the kitchen getting some coffee. And I looked out into the funeral home's parking lot. And in that parking lot, I saw all these cars. And I thought, oh, my goodness, I put the wrong time down for the funeral. So I better get over there. So I got back to my office, and I got my coat on, and I got my Bible and my ritual book, and I skedaddled across the alleyway there to the funeral home and got in there, and I opened the door of the funeral home, and there was the viewing room with grandma in there, and the coffin was up, and all the family was around the outside of the wall. There's nobody in the middle of the room. And I stood there for a moment, and I realized that this family probably didn't get together very much. And so they had hired a professional photographer. And the photographer was taking family group pictures. Now, what made this a little odd was that one of the pictures was around the open coffin with Granny. There was one last little picture, I guess, they wanted to have with her. I don't know where you hang a picture like that, over the mantle or something, who knows. But so I'm just standing there kind of marveling at this. And this woman walks up to me and she says, who do you belong to? And I said, well, I realized she was asking me which family member I belong to. And I said, well, actually, I'm the Methodist preacher. I'm here to conduct the funeral services. And so she turns around in a very loud voice. She says, Velma, the preacher's here. And we walked to the middle of the room. That room had been full of all kind of conversation going on before that. But when she announced the preacher was here, everybody got dead quiet. It's like they hadn't seen one of me in a long time, my kind. So we stop in the middle of the room. Velma, whose mother was in the coffin, and this was her sister, Vera. Velma says, okay, preacher, I just need to know one thing. I said, well, what is that, ma'am? She said, how much is this going to cost me? And so I was a young pastor. I was embarrassed to be receiving any kind of honorarium, even if this person wasn't a member of our church. And so I said, well, I don't have a set fee, just whatever you think's right. She said, no, sir. I'm a businesswoman, and I need a number. And so I said, out of desperation, and you could feel the people in the room leaning toward the center. And so I just, out of desperation, said, $50. And Velma says, Vera, pay him. And so Vera pulls out this roll of bills that was that big around and peeled a 50 off of it. And I realized I'd underestimated my worth in that moment. So she paid me, and then everybody went back to talking again. I was blushing. I was so embarrassed. And I'm just standing there, and Velma had turned to walk away. And when she got about 4 paces from me, she stopped. She turned around and she says, you know what that buys me, don't you, preacher? I said, no, ma'am, I don't know what that buys you. She said, short sermon. And then she walked on off. As I look back on that experience, I realized I'd made a strategic error. When she said, do you know what that buys me, preacher? What I should have said was, oh, no, ma'am, 100 buys you a short sermon, 50 buys you a medium long one. There are all kinds of things you learn in pastoral ministry. Y'all have a blessed day.